Hi, I'm Dan, and if you're new to homebrewing, so am I. Welcome to my adventures in homebrewing.
Hey everybody, it's Dan. It's that time once more to go around the world one more time and have a beer or two along the way. Thanks a lot for coming out this week. And I also got to say thanks to Ian from Battlehouse Hops, having been on the podcast last week and tell us a little about his hop farm and basically like craft hops and things like that he's done, that he's supplying to the local brewers and also home brewers and things like that. So if you haven't had a chance, go online, look at Battlehouse Hops and check them out. They're fantastic. He's a fantastic guy. It's a really cool area. It used to be a training ground for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police when they used to do fighting in built up eras. And yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So this week, we're going to be talking with someone I've had on the show before. We're going to be talking to Ryan Pachmayer. Not only is he an award-winning home brewer, but he's also a writer for Zymergy magazine. If I'm right, and if I'm remembering this right, I know Ryan will correct me if I'm wrong or not, he's won the Big Beer contest in Breckenridge. I'm not sure how many times, but I know he's won it. So he'll correct me along the way. But so this week we're going to be talking about how barrels, barrel aging, how to maintain them, and things like that. So if you're into barrel aging and all things dark beer or beer going in barrels and aging them so they kind of taste like bourbon or whiskey, well, this is the show for you. So hang tight. We're going to hear from Escarpment Labs and also from Brewers Friend, and we'll go from there. Hey, it's Dan here one more time, and I'm happy to say that we are now, or should I say my podcast is now sponsored by Escarpment Laboratories, yeast production for the fermentation of the exceptional craft beer. Whether your kit is on the stovetop or in a commercial brew house, wholesale yeast and quality control for the profitable pro brewer, community engagement and education for the discerning home brewery. If you are a craft brewer and you love using quality yeast, then you really do need to check out Escarpment Laboratories.
Dan here one more time to say thank you to the great people over at Brewers Friend for the fantastic offer they've just given us. For all the new users of Brewers Friend, for their first year, you're going to receive 15% off. That's 50% savings on this great piece of software. And what is Brewers Friend? Well, Brewers Friend is a complete recipe designer, brew day planner, and journal. The details make the difference between an average batch of homebrew and a truly excellent brew that is repeatable. Brewers Friend automates the details, guides you through the brewing process, and saves all the data. And how do you get all this fun stuff? Well, once you go in and you sign in and you go to sign up for Brewers Friend, and to get that 15% savings, you need to use the promo code podcast. That's all you got to do. When you sign up, type in podcast for the promo code and you will get 15% off. Again, thank you to the great people at Brewers Friend for this, and I'll see you on the other side.
And we're back. Look at that magic of technology. We're back. So here we are with Ryan out in Colorado. I mean, I keep forgetting what part of Colorado. I know it's not Denver. I know
just
it's
outside
not
of Denver.
Boulder.
Just outside of Denver. Yeah.
All right.
And thanks for having me today, Dan. It's great to be back on the show.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for coming back, man. Greatly appreciate it. I mean, I know I've picked your brain a few times on how to do things, and I can say this: I took your advice when I was doing my Baltic Porter, and I maxed out the malt pipe on my Brewzilla. Honestly, like I was going to stir the damn thing, and I was like, it ain't happening.
How did the beer turn out?
Absolutely fantastic. I got a 9.5% Baltic Porter, and people are like, oh, you need to have it on tap. I'm like, that is a beer you do not put on tap. It's a one and done. So it goes into the little stubby bottles, and that's it. 9.5%. I don't need a big glass.
I feel the same way. It always boggles my mind when I go to friends' houses and they have like a 17% beer on their tap, and I'm like, really? This is gonna be on for like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's almost like saying this is a beer on a dare. Like, how many can you handle in one sitting?
Might as well put a bottle of whiskey on tap, right? That's
could be worse things.
Yeah, that's fair point.
Could be worse.
About the big beers competition earlier. I haven't won the whole competition like best in show, but I've won many medals over the years there. So
Okay.
there's your correction.
Well, like I said, guys, I knew he would correct me if I was wrong.
Uh,
So we also have a friend in common, Coulter Wilson, has the podcast Homebrewing DIY. Coulter, I hope things are going well in your family. We're thinking about you. If anything we can do, reach out, let us know. So with that said, we are going to talk about barrel aging, prepping your barrel, how long the beer should be in the barrel, what should be in the barrel, and go from there. So I guess I'll just start off and say I have 2 5-gallon whiskey barrels at home here down in my basement. When I got them, I didn't plan to use them right away, so I filled them with water to keep them hydrated. Now I'm getting ready to use them, and I've gotten a mixed bag of suggestions on how to take care of these things. So people are saying, okay, that's great, you've kept them hydrated. Now dump it out and put at least 2 bottles of whiskey in each to get the whiskey flavor back into it. Then I'm like, okay, well, shouldn't I like maybe try and kill everything that's in there first? Like maybe a little bit of citric acid or Camden tablets or something. So I'm a little out of my depth. I mean, I got all like hot and horny to get these things, and I'm like, I had big plans, and now I'm like, it's not happening right now because I'm totally confused.
You did it backwards. You're supposed to brew the beer and then procure the barrel and fill it.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's okay though. This is very common, and I've done this many times over the years. Where you're at right now, I would probably do something. At the very least, I'd put some boiling water in it and try to kill whatever's in there.
Okay.
Citric acid is going to strip out some of the flavor, including some of the wood flavor. So if you do citric acid, I would put basically, like someone told you, a bottle or 2 in there, depending on this. What you said, a 5-gallon?
Yeah.
You can calculate it, maybe a half bottle to a bottle of whiskey in there after you put the citric acid in there, after you've cleaned it out, sanitized it. And then I'd probably even add some extra oak, like spirals, in there, because you're going to lose a lot of oak flavor by stripping it out with citric acid. Right. And then go from there. I'm not sure. It might not be exactly like it was originally, but I mean, you'll definitely get wood, and you'll get some bourbon or whiskey in there. But the best way to do this is to brew the beer and know the beer will be ready in about 4 weeks, and then find a local distillery that's going to empty their whiskey in about a month. And the day they empty it, pick up that barrel and transfer your beer right in there, so you don't have to worry about sanitation,
right,
drying out, all that stuff. That's the way I like to do it. It's a little bit of planning, but yeah.
Yeah, planning is not necessarily my strong suit.
But you can make an exception. It's a special beer, so you make a special exception and you plan this one.
Well, there's a few dark beers I'm trying to plan here and figure out which one I'm going to go for right off the start. I mean, yes, yes, I know 2 are going to be imperials. One's an imperial porter, one's an imperial stout. But I'm also planning on doing a pastry stout. But it's kind of off the wall, and other people are like, you got to do it right now. I'm like, I don't have time, in the middle of selling my house. I want to make a maple bacon donut stout.
Wow. So when you do the flavors, I like to add the flavors after the barrel. So you make your base stout, and then you put it in the barrel, and when it's tasting really good, take it out and then flavor to taste. That way the flavors are really fresh. Because if you're putting maple, bacon, whatever flavors in there before you put it in the barrel, then it's kind of like those flavors are mellowing out and they're not as fresh by the time you decide to bottle it.
Because I was thinking about putting the donut, because I'm actually going to use actual maple bacon donuts from a local donut shop here.
Wow.
And put them in the mash to try and keep the grease under control by using the grain bed as a filter. So because I figured it'll work really well that way. Just set it on the top and let it go down through. And if I need to add more maple to it, I would add maybe some maple syrup as it goes into the actual barrel.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get away with it since it's a 5-gallon barrel, and I know we're gonna talk about it later on probably, but the turnaround time on a 5-gallon barrel is going to be a lot quicker than a 53-gallon barrel. So those flavors will probably still be there 3, 6, 8 months down the line when you decide to bottle it. But that maple, I would adjust the maple after the barrel, not before the barrel. Okay. So whatever you have to do in the mash, do it in the mash. That's fine. When you're done fermenting the beer, put it into the barrel, let it sit in the barrel for, an indeterminate amount of time until it's starting to taste good. And then when you transfer it out, I would maple to taste from there.
Okay, so I'm going to backtrack for a minute because we were
Yeah, sure.
talking initially about prepping it, and you mentioned things like boiling water and how the citric acid and things like that would strip out some of the flavors. When I got the barrels, the guy I got them from, he said drop a couple of Campton tablets in it. Is it kind of the same thing, or
I've heard of people doing that. I haven't done it myself, but I assume that would work just fine because Camden should kill any wild yeast in there. So I think that would be fine. You could do boiling water and Camden tablets,
Okay.
but I would just make sure you follow the Camden tablet instructions. What is it? It's been a while since I made wine.
I think it's like
48 hours or 24 hours,
something like that.
But the dosage amount and 24 or 48 hours of leaving it before you do anything else to it.
Okay,
Like
so now what is the difference between the citric acid and also the Campton tablets? I mean, they're both doing the same thing, but
I think the citric acid is probably going to really get into that wood better, is my guess.
Yeah.
Which is why I think citric acid is really going to strip more of the flavor out. I don't think boiling water or Camden will strip out too much flavor. Maybe just like surface flavor, but I've heard citric acid really can strip out a lot of flavor.
Okay.
But I think it's probably one of, if not the most effective way to clean a barrel that's been sitting around for a long time.
So when everything's all said and done, and I know you've kind of grazed over it. You said that once the beer's done, you've emptied out whatever was inside the barrel. You're transferring straight into the barrel. Now, I've read it could be anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks, depending on what you want for flavor. But I'm thinking it could be up to maybe a month max in a small barrel like that.
I think you can go longer. So I have more experience with 10-gallon barrels, but
Okay.
I found like 6 to 8 months in a 10-gallon barrel is kind of equal to a year and a half to 2 years, maybe in a 53-gallon, a full-size whiskey barrel.
Okay.
So, I mean, for a 5-gallon, I mean, that means you could probably go at least 2 or 3 months, depending.
Right.
Again, the best thing to do is to taste along the way. If it tastes good after 3 weeks, that's great. You're done. If it's not tasting, it doesn't seem like it's extracted everything. Wait more, and just sample it along the way. And another thing about sampling, I like to drill a little hole, the Vinny nail. Have you heard of the Vinny nail? Vinny from Russian River kind of invented it, or at least that's how it got its name. So I drill a little hole and then you nail in a sanitized nail, and you just pull the nail out when you want to take a sample, and you just gravity feeds very slowly into a glass, and then spray it with Star San, hammer the nail back in. That way you're not opening the top up and exposing it to air constantly and letting things get in there.
Right.
It's already oxidizing with the wood and the staves a little bit. You don't want to oxidize it anymore.
I was thinking using a turkey baster. Honestly,
which again, it's just like a wine thief, a turkey baster. But the problem is you're opening the top though, and then the oxygen gets in, so that's less ideal. The nail is great, but again, 5-gallon is smaller. It's going to turn around quicker, so it's probably not as bad to do something like that.
Because one thing I was thinking about doing, because I'm going to use airlocks on the top of instead of just the wood bung. I was just going to put a rubber stopper and an airlock, but I can always just take the airlock out and have like a tube going into it and just create like a little gravity feed that way.
But if the tube is in the liquid, won't you have issues with pressure, head pressure potentially?
I don't think so. You shouldn't.
Okay.
You should, because it's done fermenting, right?
It's done fermenting, and a little blanket of CO2 or even light carbonation is not really a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've had beers from barrels where they're actually carbonated, coming straight out of the barrel. Maybe not fully carbonated, but they tasted like they were carbonated, like purposefully, and it was just purely from the barrel. So I've had that happen before.
So when you're going for your flavors, what should you be noticing if you think it's gone too far? I mean, I got a feeling if you find it's like got too much of an oak or wood flavor to it, or if it's got like a crazy kind of wet cardboard flavor to it, then you know it's gone too far. But how do you know?
Well, with a 5-gallon barrel, you might have too much surface area and you might extract too much wood, like you say. But generally speaking, it just stops changing, I've noticed, or the beer, you stop getting more wood, you stop getting more whiskey or bourbon flavor. and the beer is just aging itself at that point. So like I said, like you could be at a 53 gallon barrel, you can be 18 or 24 months, and then you've extracted all the flavors you need to. The base beer is kind of aged, oxidized just enough to where everything's kind of in harmony. So I guess that's what you're really looking for, is everything harmonizing. You want enough whiskey flavor, you want enough oak flavor, and you want the base beer not to be hot. You want it to be smooth. Some of those hotter flavors have mellowed over time in the barrel, taking on a little bit of the oxidative character. If you're starting to taste anything bad, like if you start to taste a little bit of a tiny hint of a sour, get it out of there and drink it before it goes bad. Definitely seen that happen. If you start tasting any sort of those off flavors like that, I would definitely work on getting it out. But otherwise, you're just looking for it to really taste good, everything to kind of mellow and harmonize. And you don't know what you're going to get all the time. You get a boozy barrel sometimes. If you have 3 barrels, that's why it's great to blend beer. Sometimes you get one that's really good, but it's over chocolate flavor. And then you have another one that's roasty. You have another one that might have a little bit of cinnamon in it, like kind of flavors from the oak and the whiskey. And you can blend those and kind of make the perfect concoction. So it's sometimes good to have multiple barrels on hand.
Oh, okay. So now going from like the barrel, I mean, at least my plan is to take the beer out of the barrel, put it into my bright tank, and carbonate the bright tank. And from there, I'm thinking, I don't know, how do I take care of the barrel? How do I clean it? Do I need to keep water in it to keep it hydrated? Do I put water whiskey mix, or do I put all whiskey? Yeah, really expensive whiskey barrel, but and go from there. I mean,
no, you've got to learn from what we talked about earlier. You have to have a beer ready to go, put it right back in there. I'm serious. As soon as you think the flavors are starting to get good, make and what I like to do if I'm using second or third use barrels, I'll start with something big like a stout, and then maybe I'll go to like a barley wine, and then maybe I'll go to a quad, then maybe I'll go to like a 8 or 9% porter. I'll kind of like drop down a little bit in intensity, because you're going to get less flavor contribution second use, and even less on the third use and fourth use. So I really like to use usually stouts for my first use, and then go a little bit lower. So you just got to plan for it. You need probably 3 weeks to ferment most beers. If it's a really big beer, you probably need 4 weeks. If it's starting to taste good, brew another beer. But I like to just, I'm serious. I like to use them back to back. That's why 10 gallons nice, because it might take 6 months with the stout. And then your next beer might take 4 or 5 months. And so you don't have to brew. If this 5 gallon starts tasting really good in 6 weeks, I understand you might not want to brew in 6 weeks right away. But that's the best way to use these barrels. Otherwise, it's just you're really gambling. You're playing with fire just by trying to sanitize them each time. And then again, you're stripping out more flavors. So you might as well just ferment in a normal container and use some wood and some whiskey like that, by the second or third time, because you're putting a lot of effort into effectively doing the same thing, I'd say.
So what should people do though, if they don't plan to use it after roll right away? Should they keep them hydrated by putting boiling hot water and maybe a couple of Campton tablets in there just to make sure, dump it out, then refresh it with more hot water to keep them hydrated? And just keep checking the level?
I would clean it out. A distillery near me, a rum distillery, a local guy, retired guy, it's his retirement project. He likes to keep them soaked underwater, just sitting in like a tub underwater. I mean, my concern about that kind of stuff is just like mold and stuff growing. So I would do what you said. I would clean it out right away, really good, boiling water, that kind of thing. Keep it sealed. You might want to spray the outside, especially the ends and around the bung, with water every once in a while, so those don't dry out. Those are the most common leak points, the barrel ends in the bung, around the bung hole. And then just right when you're gonna use the barrel again, do the same thing that you talked about doing the first time. Just again, boiling water, or if you're gonna do Camden, or if you're gonna do citric acid. So basically treat it the same way you're going to treat it now for first use, but just make sure you clean it going out. Otherwise you'll have a bunch of stout sitting there, and I don't want to know what that's going to smell or taste like. Remnants of a stout just sitting in a barrel for months. Actually, I know it's going to smell sour and nasty.
I've had sour stouts. I mean, don't get me wrong. So if done right, they're actually really, really good. And it's an acquired taste, shall we say. It's kind of like you're getting a beer out of a foeder, and you're like, either it's really, really good, or you're like, I don't think you've hit the mark on this one.
I don't think I've had a good sour stout yet. I've had a few that I could drink. And I've had many that were just not good.
Yeah. And that's where kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, I like stouts, not too crazy on this.
And half the time when I see them in the marketplace, it was unintentional, and they just said, "Oh, this tastes good," which it's easy to say it tastes good when you're the one that has to sell it for your business. There's a little bit of bias there. I think, oh wow, this isn't so bad. We'll sell it as a sour stout because we're going to sell it for $10 a bottle versus dumping it down the drain. But yeah, I've dumped stouts that have gone sour myself because I usually don't like that flavor. But I don't know. I'm sure like Jester King or somebody could make a Russian River could probably make probably have made a really good sour stout before.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that beer you were drinking from Jester King when you were down in, I forget where you were. I think you were down in
Austin.
Texas.
Yeah. Austin, Texas.
Down in Texas. I was just like, I wonder if he's meeting the guys from the homebrew happy hour.
And no, I didn't know they were. I was only there for like 36 hours. So I had very, very little time. I met a friend at Live Oak Brewing, and then I had a friend in downtown Austin I was hanging out with, and had to stop at Jester King because I work at New Image Brewing as well, and we've done so many fun collaborations with those guys. So I wanted to check it out, and man, Jester King is probably tops as far as coolest brewery I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah, they have 160 acres. They have a goat farm. They have cool ship.
Yeah, don't have that here. I work
anywhere.
I work at a pretty cool brewery, but we don't have that. So
yes, I agree. Same here.
So now that we've gone from, okay, you've maintained it, you've cleaned it. Now, how do you know when it's completely done being useful and it's time
the barrel?
When it's time to get new ones.
I mean, it's funny because I've used the barrel. I mean, a lot of times it just goes sour. You do the best you can, and something wild gets in there, and you're like, all right, it's done. Some wild yeast got in there, and I taste some kind of fruity tartness. I've had friends use 10-gallon barrels like 7 times, and I've tasted the beer like an Imperial Marzen 7th time, or like a big rye pale ale, and it tastes good. There's a little bit of underlying oak, a very hint of whiskey, and it's like, wow, I can't believe you got 7 uses out of it. But I would say when you were probably at the point where you were unhappy with your last beer, it's not worth the trouble anymore. There's a reason why most breweries just use their barrels once, maybe twice, because it's not cost effective for them. It might sour. They're not getting the right flavors. The flavors are unpredictable. I mean, if you make a 7% beer and it doesn't have enough of the flavor from the wood, or has too much, it just becomes a hassle to deal with that. Okay. So if the pros aren't finding it worthwhile, then you might go 3, 4, 5 uses a home brewer, but just know that you're kind of in, you'd be happy if you get something good. You're in that kind of territory, I'd say. So you focus all your efforts on first use and second use. And if you get more out of it, be thankful.
Okay. So what should we use for whiskey to replenish that flavor? Should we just use budget booze, or should we actually get used? The way I look at it is, if you're not going to use it if you're not going to drink it, don't use it. That's my philosophy. It's kind of like if you're using wine to cook with. If you don't want to drink it, don't use it.
I think that's fair, but there is a little bit of an exception. I don't think you want to look for whiskey that you're happy to drink straight, because you're not drinking whiskey straight in this. You're blending it with a bunch of other flavors. It's just a component in the final blend. It's one ingredient, for example. Like you wouldn't eat raw garlic, but you'd put garlic in your recipe most of the time.
Well,
okay, most of us would not eat raw garlic, or
my daughter would,
or most of us wouldn't roast garlic and just eat that straight, but we would eat mushrooms and roasted garlic. So I like to think about cocktail whiskeys, for example, because those are using other components like vermouth and other flavors. So those are usually more budget, Old Grandad, things like that. Rittenhouse rye. Those are ones that I use all the time, and they're $20 or $30 in the US for bottles of that stuff. Buffalo Trace is a great one. Four Roses. But another thing you want to think about too is when a professional brewery gets that freshly dumped whiskey barrel, the whiskey that was in that barrel is not 80 proof whiskey. It's barrel strength whiskey, which is, I don't know, what, 110 proof or something. That's what they put in that barrel, because that is the strength at which it best extracts the oak. And it's more efficient too. Well, so I like to look for barrel strength whiskey too. I'll look for 100 proof whiskey, and I'll put 100 proof whiskey in there, because that's going to better replicate what you're used to drinking from professional barrel aged stouts. professional distilleries, when they empty those barrels, they water down the whiskey to 80 proof, unless they're doing, the 110 proof special releases these days.
Okay.
So that's what I like to look. I don't think you should waste, a Weller 12 or something a really good $100 bottle of whiskey on your on flavoring your stout, because I don't think it's necessarily going to come through. And young whiskey is actually, despite not being great to drink straight, young whiskey can be really nice, and young barrels can be really nice in a stout. They put really fresh flavors into the beer.
All right. So can you use different spirits in barrels? I mean, I know you probably can, but I mean, there's one brewery called Hidden Cove in Maine that I've been to, and they had a sour that was aged in tequila barrels with charred jalapeno, which was actually really good. So I'm thinking, well, why couldn't you do that with, let's say, something else like a pale ale? Drop some tequila in a barrel, twirl it around, and let it soak in, then go from there. I mean, I wouldn't do that with like the tequila I like to drink, but I'd probably go get a bottle of Jose and drop it in there.
Yeah, you can do all sorts of that stuff. I mean, even with just stouts like brandy, port wine's fantastic in stouts. Rum is obviously good. Going with different whiskeys, Irish whiskey, if you like Scotch, get that smoke component. And obviously Scotch, you can go from like super peaty to like the southern stuff that's like blended and lighter.
Right.
But yeah, you can go everywhere. Tequila, I wouldn't recommend tequila or gin with my with like stouts, but I've done a really good English barley wine in gin barrels that won several awards, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and that was fantastic. Like the caramel flavors just went really well with the gin.
I respect everything that you're saying, but you lost me at barley wine.
You don't like barley wine?
Oh, like it ranks right up there with like you walk into a room and all you smell is paint thinner. It's like,
oh no. Maybe you haven't had the right barley wines yet.
I've tried my fair share. It doesn't sit well with me for some reason.
Have you what's a good brewery by you, like Bellwoods or something? Bellwood's really good, right?
By me, let's see.
Or maybe not near you, but in Canada.
In Canada, well, let's see. There's Le Petit Caribou in Montreal. Distillery, Beauregard's is really good because that's all they do is all dark beer, and they're only open one day a week.
And have you had a barley wine from those guys?
I've been thinking about it. I've
definitely seen there's a wide variation of barley wine. It's not as easy of a style to make. So, but usually I found that most people that really like barrel aged stouts are at least can find some barley wine that they like, especially barrel aged barley wine.
I haven't found a good barley wine around here. So,
well, if you ever make it down to the Denver area, I will. That'll be my mission to find a barley wine.
All right. I'm gonna hold you to it, because I also got to drop in and go say hi to the guys over at 5 Star sometime I come down.
All right. Yeah, their place is right around the corner for me, actually. So
there you go.
Yeah.
It's just, you gotta go say hi to them, and they like visits every now and then.
Yeah. we'll do a barley wine tasting over there. I'm sure they'll appreciate
There you go. I hate to cut this short, but I just got a text from my boy saying, "Dad, help!" He needs a ride.
Oh, geez.
He needs a lift.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't live at home anymore, but he still needs Dad to come get him.
I've never heard that before.
No, never. So, but would you be up to teeing up again? We could talk more about this down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anytime. Just sorry about the delay on this one before. I just had to wait for
not a problem.
That article to come
totally
out.
Understand. But next time we tee up, we can talk about the article you wrote for Zymergy magazine. If you haven't seen it, guys, go to the American Homebrewers Association, go to the Zymergy tab, and you'll see what Ryan wrote on I think it was on big beers, on stouts, and I think also
barrel
on
aged stouts.
Barrel aged stouts. So go check them out. Again, Ryan is, in my opinion, the foremost authority that I know on on barrel aging beers and things like that. So Ryan, thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate your time. We'll be in touch, and we'll make up another time where we can talk more stuff.
You're welcome. It sounds great, and I think I'm the 20th foremost person about barrel aged spirit that I know.
With that said, seeing that you've got your new image hat, if you give me an address, I'll send you a Stray Dog hat for the brewery I work at.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you.
All right, man. So guys, Again, thanks for coming along for the ride and a beer or two along the way. I'm Dan. He is Ryan, and we'll see you on the other side.